Kanye West said it loud and clear. "I should have had a baby with Paris Hilton instead of Kim Kardashian." That one sentence cracked open a door the world wasn't ready to walk through. What started as a sarcastic jab turned into a spotlight on decades of buried secrets, blurred fame, and unspoken regrets. But this wasn't just about Kanye's twisted love triangle. It was about Hollywood's elite circles, tabloid explosions, and the kind of power plays most of us never see coming. But to understand that moment, we've got to go back to when Kim Kardashian wasn't even famous. 1. Back when Kim slept in the guest room. Before the reality shows, before the billion-dollar empire, Kim Kardashian was Paris Hilton's assistant. She wasn't on red carpets, she was organizing closets. Scott Storch, one of the most iconic producers of the early 2000s, spilled details most people had forgotten or never knew. Kim, back then, would crash in his guest room, but then she didn't. Scott hinted at something weird that happened. He never explained what, but the implication was loud enough. Suddenly, Kim wasn't in the guest room anymore. She was in the master bedroom. That silent shift said more than words ever could. The Diddy theory and the mysterious video. Then came Kanye, years later, dropping a bomb most fans didn't expect. He suggested Kim and Paris might have been sharing time with Diddy, and referenced an alleged video that may have surfaced during a raid at one of Diddy's homes. Sounds insane, right? Except Scott Storch's timeline lines up too well. He was there for the parties, the behind-the-scenes chaos, the circles that weren't just elite, they were untouchable. And what's wild is, this wasn't new gossip. People had whispered about this for years. But only now, those whispers started turning into patterns. 3. Indian Creek Island, where fame got dark. Scott was living in one of the most exclusive places in the country, Indian Creek Island, home to billionaires and moguls. He had the wealth, the music, the cars, but he didn't have the spotlight. Not until Paris Hilton showed up. She didn't just date him, she transformed his world. Paparazzi, TMZ, club invites, tabloid spreads. She dragged him out of the studio and into a tornado of celebrity attention. What he described wasn't just glitz, it was a trap. "I got caught up. I changed who I was." And it only got darker from there. Kim moves in and up. When Paris was gone, Kim was ready. She stepped in quietly, as if the transition was always meant to happen. Scott didn't describe her as a clout chaser. In fact, he called her organic and eager. She had a hunger to build something big. She saw how Paris played the fame game, and she played it better. She didn't start loud, she started calculated. There was even a playbook, and Kim followed it step by step. 5. The Bugatti ride no one noticed. Scott recalled one moment that felt like a glitch in the timeline. He pulled up to a Hollywood mansion in a Bugatti. Kim Kardashian was in the passenger seat. Not one camera turned toward her. Everyone was shouting Scott's name. Nobody even noticed Kim was there. That moment became a symbol. She was in the background, soaking it in, watching, learning. And when her time came, she flipped the switch. 6. Cocaine club nights and the loss of identity. Behind the flashy cars and designer shades was a darker world. Scott admitted it himself. He lost himself in it. He was surrounded by people who looked down on others, who lived for the next party, the next story, the next scandal. He never named names, said it would be too disrespectful, but the tone said it all. He described a slow death of self, turning from a grounded musician into a fame chaser, caught in addiction and ego. One detail stuck out. His driver wasn't just there to open doors. He was carrying all the nose candy. And Scott wasn't flexing. He was warning. 7. Kanye's Twitch meltdown and the legacy that wasn't. Fast forward to today, Kanye's had enough. He hopped on Twitch and said what many were thinking but no one dared to say. If I had kids with Paris Hilton, I'd be sitting on a hotel empire right now. It wasn't about love. It was about legacy, the Hilton name, generational wealth, real estate. He painted a picture of what could have been, and beneath the sarcasm, you could feel the regret. And here's the twist. The Hilton family hasn't even owned their hotel chain since 2007. 5 years before Kanye even got with Kim. So why mention it? Because for Kanye, it was never about actual ownership. It was about the symbolism, the idea that he tied himself to a system he never controlled. And now he's watching it play out, with his kids at the center. 8. Dre, the Devil, and a Broken Kanye. In one of the most bizarre twists, Scott recalled a studio session with Dr. Dre and Kanye. Kanye popped in, took a photo, and left. But minutes later, he came back. What started with Kanye muttering a regretful line about Paris Hilton turned into something no one expected. A deep dive into the underbelly of Hollywood, the secrets, the betrayals, the price of ambition. Scott Storch lost himself in it. He had the money, the influence, and the talent. But fame doesn't just knock on your door. It drags you out, chews you up, and spits out whatever version of you fits the story. Paris Hilton lit the match. She wasn't just a party girl. She was a gatekeeper to a world that looked glamorous on the outside but ran on power, manipulation, and control behind the scenes. Kim Kardashian watched and waited. She played the long game. She moved from closets to cameras, guest rooms to boardrooms. And while the world fixated on her looks or her drama, she was building an empire, one quiet, strategic step at a time. And then there's Kanye, a man who once thought he could bend the industry to his will, a creative genius now tangled in lawsuits, headlines, and fatherhood battles. He's not reminiscing about love. He's unraveling a life that didn't go the way he thought it would. And the scariest part? He knew what he was walking into, but he walked in anyway. When he says he should have had a baby with Paris, it's not about romance, it's about power. He's talking about missed opportunity, about a name that might have elevated his legacy instead of tethering it to a reality empire that he no longer respects. It's bitterness, regret, maybe even fear. And now he's forced to live out that regret in front of the world, through live streams, rants, and late-night interviews, while the people he once stood beside continue building in silence. But this story isn't just about celebrities. It's about what fame demands, what it destroys, and who's left holding the broken pieces when the camera's cut off. Because once you're inside Hollywood's inner circle, there's no clean exit. Not for Kanye, not for Scott, not for anyone. And if you think this is where the story ends, you're wrong. Because the tapes haven't all leaked. The stories haven't all surfaced. And the real power players, they haven't even spoken yet. So stay locked in. This is only the beginning.